those were designed to go right over your, 5¼ bay on your tower. Yeah. Because we had bigger stickers, they were like your traditional bumper sticker size. And what people were doing was they were just cutting out the word Linux and putting that on there. Their CD-ROM drive. Okay. If you are here for the Network Manager session, then you're in the right place. Otherwise, Pentavo's next door. The Google snack room is down the hall and around the corner. My name is Doran Barton, president of IO Dynamics, which, if you read your press release, it's posted out there in that main congregating area. We are now part of Knowledge Blue, and so I am now a Knowledge Blue employee and quite proud of it. It's a great little company. We're going places. And this presentation is about Network Manager. Who uses Network Manager?
I'm trying.
Okay, maybe we can skip to slide 10.
Does that need more idiots?
Yes.
What's slide 10? All right. I'm comfortable with that.
Well, it's not only idiots. It's like, it's a common denominator issue here. Where's my mouse? Okay, there we go. So, Network Manager addresses a specific problem. And the problem really is that wireless networking in Linux sucks. And the reason it sucks so much, if you keep your laptop at home and you have it bolted to your desk and you're only connecting to this one access point, it's really not so bad. But most people take their laptop and take advantage of the fact that it was designed for mobility, and they go places with it. And every place they go, they run into different SSIDs, they run into different encryption schemes, and so forth. And dealing with that in Linux has not been easy. And this also applies not as much to wired networking, because usually wired networking, the most that you ever have to worry about is maybe a static IP. Give me my IP and my netmask. What's the gateway? What's the DNS? That kind of stuff. Most of the time, DHCP takes care of that for you. You plug in, you run DH client or something like that, and you pick up a static IP or whatever. And then the other thing is, some people occasionally have to use dial-up. And dial-up is another thing that could be easier in the Linux world when you have to use it. I'll show you guys an example a little later why I still use dial-up. And I don't mind, really.
I know why.
Okay, so again, wireless networking on Linux. It's terrible in general. If you're buying a laptop and you intend to run Linux on it, one of the first things you want to do is find out what's the chipset being used for the wireless. What's the chipset being used for the video? Can I do accelerated video? Do I have to use a free or non-free driver? That sort of thing. But the wireless networking has been a real issue. And it seems like most of the laptops that you buy brand new today use either a Broadcom or an Intel chipset. Some of them are using a Realtek chipset. But with the exception of certain Intel chipsets, there's some tweaking you have to do to get them to work. Broadcom, you can use NDISC wrapper, that sort of thing. But what it really comes down to is that you may or may not be able to get all the functionality of your wireless networking circuitry working. NDISC wrapper has done some amazing things in terms of making cards that have not been released to the open source community, making them work. And it uses some black magic to make sense of the Windows DLL that is shipped with the software for the with the card or the chipset, and using that black magic, it is able to somehow access the hardware and do stuff with it. I have in here, when I ordered my laptop, the only thing that was available for this HP was a Broadcom, and I was like, I don't even want to deal with that, so I'll just get a PC card. So I have a Netgear 711, WG 711 something, and it uses the UTOSC chipset, and you can use the MAD Wi-Fi driver. It works great, and I know, it's kind of sticks out there like a sore thumb, but hey, I can browse and do all the things that I need to do. The Intel, I understand the newest Intel, there are some issues in getting that working, but it seems like everybody that I know that gets like an IBM ThinkPad, it just works because it's got the Intel stuff in it. So let's talk about some of the historical solutions for getting around this problem. It seems like most of the time when I run into this, I know back in 2002 I went to work for About.com, which is now United Online, free servers, and they handed everybody out these old Dell Latitudes with exploding batteries, and somebody said, well, if you want to use the wireless on this, here's a script. And it was some kind of a script that parsed your grub command line arguments, and that somehow referred to a configuration file that brought up your wireless on the right SSID with the security parameters and so forth. And as I look around on the internet, I found that there are several of those types of solutions. Lots of different people have rolled their own solution to get around this. There are many elaborate solutions to do this, but not an elegant solution. And an elegant solution would be something like what your Windows or MacBook would do. Somehow it stores configurations. It at least lets you scan available wireless networks, and then you pick the one you want to connect to. And I mean, that's what an elegant solution would do. It doesn't force you to the command line and having to do these IW spy and all this kind of stuff. Those tools are great, and even if an elegant solution would use those tools on the backside, but what we really want is something that just works the way an idiot wants it to work. So, enter Network Manager. Network Manager lets normal users, that's users that don't have root access or don't want to go to that level. That's another issue, is that all these other solutions require that you do SGU to become super user or something. You use sudo or something that would give you super user access to the machine. So Network Manager lets you, as just a normal user, scan the network. It lets you store configuration information about different networks, and then the next time that you encounter that network, you come back the next day, you power up your laptop, it will, if it sees that network that it's connected to before, it'll just automatically reconnect, knowing that that's probably the network you want to attach to. If you are attached to a wireless network and you plug in a wired network, Network Manager makes the decision for you. Oh, well, a wired network is so much better than a wireless network, and so it switches your connection over to that. If you unplug the wired network, Network Manager takes you back to the nearest or the best trusted wireless access point.
Is there priorities and stuff that you can set? Priorities like this wireless network is priority 5, if it's not available, use this one as priority.
I haven't really looked into the way that Network Manager does it. Have you?
I'm trying to use Network Manager. It's kicking my butt.
That's a nice looking laptop, by the way.
Yeah, I know. And it's got the built-in Broadcom that you...
That's one complaint that people have had about Network Manager is, us being Linux geeks, sometimes we don't want a piece of software making those kinds of decisions for us. And that's perhaps a caveat of Network Manager. But then, if you don't mind, you can still go to the command line and do all this stuff yourself. It's
Well, I
fine.
can't get to run.
The way Network Manager works, and we're going to go into this in a lot more detail, it uses dbus and HAL. So that takes us to our next slide. Well, we'll get there. So this is some of the features I think I've probably already talked about. It knows when new network is introduced. So when you plug in an external wireless card, Network Manager automatically knows that there is a new network card attached, and it will automatically start scanning. And when you query it for nearby access points, nearby networks, it will list you those networks, assuming that you have the drivers. Sometimes it won't do anything. We're still in driver hell with wireless network chipsets. If you plug in a wired network connection, it initiates the DHCP client and goes that way. And some of the more advanced features that we will talk about, dial-up and VPN control from Network Manager. But overall, Network Manager just tries to make the connecting to a network process easy and straightforward, the way that other people would expect it to do. Expect the experience to be after having worked on a Mac or Windows. So some of the drawbacks, it does not support non-DHCP network configuration, so you can't connect to a wireless access point in a situation where normally you would have a static IP associated with that network connection. Same thing with wired. You can't plug in and have some way of saying, well, when I plug in here, I want this IP address every time. The way around that is if you do have control over the DHCP server, put your MAC address in the configuration file and say, every time this MAC address requests an IP, give it this IP. Got a couple of questions here.
Any plans to support client-side static configuration?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's my same question.
Same question? Do you have another way of wording it?
Well, is there future plans? That's what I was going to ask.
Oh, okay.
Specifically, being able to check the box that says wired, and if I would like to say it's wired DHCP or wired static, and then have it pop up and say, what would you like your static evidence to be? Seems simple enough to me to just have it.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything like that. I've got some bleeding edge stuff that I've played with. I haven't seen anything like that. Back in the back.
Yeah, one of the reasons I'm in this session is I want to talk to people. I think I've got an idea for how to get that configuration stuff, whether the network manager people do it for us or not.
Well, we can do it in a static file. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Configuring a network is not a problem at all if you want to spend time in text files. But we're talking about how to do it for somebody just plugging it in and making it work and not having to worry about it. And dbus can handle most of that.
Right.
But we want to let Network Manager do it because it's already there for us, or the KDE equivalent of Herman's
Right.
Call. But
Well,
it's
yeah.
there.
And what this really comes from is the motivation was to make the desktop Linux experience as seamless and simple as possible. You had a comment or a question?
Only people use SUSE, because I use SUSE Linux, which is SUSE 10.1, and combination of YAST and Network Manager currently does that right. I mean, when I plug my wired network in, I get my static IP address. I don't know what it's doing, but it's some.
I think
Okay.
it's setting a static network inside Linux.
The thing is,
Yeah,
it's be able to change it. It screws up the DNS all the time. I can't do DNS by hand, but.
Yeah, I haven't had a whole lot of luck with that. I've noticed that sometimes it will, when I was first moving to Network Manager, it seemed to somehow import the settings that I had set up statically before. But I don't know exactly what the strategy was in doing that. But generally, when you set up your machine to use Network Manager, you turn off all the traditional network stuff. So you tell it not to bring up ETH0, and you tell it not to bring up your wireless card. You let Network Manager start and let it handle all that.
Something that the network manager people didn't tell us to do was turn all that other stuff off.
That's possible.
No, that's what happened to me. It took me about 2 weeks to figure out that Network Manager was taking everything over and screwing up my setup.
Right.
And I had to run one or the other. And that's lousy documentation.
Well, yeah, that's true. With the Red Hat and derivative distributions, Network Manager is included by default, but it's turned off by default. And I don't know if that's the case with other distributions.
Well, with Ubuntu, maybe it's starting at Edge, but what it does is it looks at your system network configuration, and if the interface is set to be configured by the system, it blacklists that interface and it won't touch it.
Okay.
So it'll still go look for a wireless network and configure that in addition if your wireless network isn't configured in the system, but it won't touch devices that are explicitly configured.
Okay. Yeah, I think Ubuntu is more brave than
So yeah, it is
some of the other
on
distributions.
by default.
Do other packages of Network Manager have locations, like saved locations? Because in Ubuntu, the Network Manager has like save your location. So if you go in and manually specify like a static IP, can you say that?
I only heard of that one.
Switch between them?
Maybe that's a new feature.
That's a Debian thing. They've been doing that for a long time, actually, where you've been able to
Debian's
say
got its own
that
port or something?
in this situation, I want to have this configuration.
Yeah,
Why
so
aren't
like
I guess my question is, why aren't they putting that in the upstream? Because I know Fedora doesn't go and modify.
Well, that's not a network management feature. That's a
It's a specific Debian feature.
Oh, okay.
Is it in the network itself?
I don't know where exactly it
I
says.
won't
but
try to distract
I think it's in the GNOME network.
That sounds like a really cool
network admin
feature.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about dbus. Dbus is, again, this is 2002 or so. Red Hat, people at Red Hat and in the free desktop world realized that there were some serious obstacles that were preventing Linux as a desktop operating system from gaining wide acceptance. And one of these issues was the fact that GNOME and KDE each had their own way to do inter-process communication between applications and between the desktop environment and applications and so forth. And so the free desktop people and these guys from Red Hat came up with this messaging bus. And I believe it was based on DCOP, which is what KDE has used, but it replicates in many cases the features of Corba, which was an all-in IPC. And what dbus gives you is, like I said, it's a messaging bus that allows programs to talk to each other and programs to talk to systems, system underneath. Let's go back to that. Let me give you just a little bit more information here for those of you who aren't familiar with dbus. Dbus defines two types of channels for messages. One is the user channel, which is used by applications running as a specific user. So when you go into GNOME or you go into KDE, any inter-process communication that's happening over dbus happens over the user channel. But then if you have services that are running as root, those services that need to use dbus will do that over the system channel, and that's restricted. There are certain restrictions on what can be handled over the system channel. So then we have how. Once the dbus was defined, the free desktop guys said, hey, we need a way that we can announce information about the hardware that's attached to the system over dbus. We need a way for programs running as non-privileged users to know that this new USB external hard drive was attached, rather than having these user programs that are polling the kernel or something like that to find out if something's attached. we can just look for announcements over dbus. So HAL, which stands for Hardware Abstraction Layer, provides the service. HAL is a system service, and it makes announcements over the system channel and any other programs that they can listen on the system channel. So HAL makes it possible for a network manager to know, hey, somebody just slid in a wireless card. So we put this all together. This is a diagram that the network manager folks put together a few years ago. This gray little area here represents dbus. We've got our underlying hardware here. Network manager and HAL and the user space applications coordinate things over dbus. And that's pretty much how it works. I've got another diagram here that shows things in even more detail. Red Hat put together a article for their Red Hat magazine a couple of years ago talking about Network Manager when it's brand new. The idea here is that below this line is kernel space, and above this line is user space. And over here we've got the Network Manager daemon. It talks to the kernel, configures the networking stack. It gets information from the system message bus about hardware from HAL, and it also talks to the Network Manager user daemon, which is, for those of you who have used Network Manager, there's a little applet running in GNOME or KDE. That is the user daemon that we see up on top, and it talks via dbus to the Network Manager. And so we really have two separate software systems here. We've got the Network Manager daemon that is running.
Your battery's
It went away.
You've got the Network Manager daemon that's running as root, and then you have the Network Manager system, Network Manager user agent. It's running as something else, as the user.
That's on video too.
How much longer do we have? So I'll release that video.
I'm not releasing that one. All right, so let's talk about some of these Network Manager components. We have the Network Manager service, which I mentioned before, runs as root. It utilizes the hardware abstraction layer and dbus. And then you have these Network Manager user agents or user daemons that most people recognize as applets that are on the desktop. These are used by users. That's what makes them users, because they're using things. And the nice thing about the user agent is it'll store individual configurations, not at the system level, but as the user level. So you can have per user configuration saved there. In GNOME, this is known as NM applet. In KDE, you have a little application called KNetwork Manager, and these talk to Network Manager service via the dbus. What this means is you have a common API. If you have another desktop, if you wanted to write an FVWM or Window Maker or any other desktop environment, you wanted to write something that natively worked with that desktop environment, you could do that quite easily because the API is readily available and it's written that way so that you can build applications on top of it. So I'm going to talk about how this is done in a Red Hat or a Red Hat derivative environment, but I don't think it's really all that different if you're using something else. First of all, you want to make sure this package, Network Manager, is installed. Some people say, why did the guy who wrote this use the camel case? Capital N. And it's because he was a Mac guy, and he thought all lowercase strung together just looked ugly, and he thought the whole idea of underscores was a joke. So anyway, he was quoted in some article about that.
It makes it very hard to find it on the command line. You try and use tab completion, you start
Yeah.
and you get nothing. You're like, where is it?
I'll in my cells.
So the the on Red Hat and Fedora, Network Manager takes care of your system service, and then you have all these other optional packages that you can install. I think out of the box you get Network Manager and Network Manager GNOME and glib, so that you can run the applet in GNOME. The K Network Manager is where everything else here was actually developed by Red Hat and then open source. The K Network Manager was actually developed here at Novell for SUSE and then released. So this does not come by default on Fedora. You have to install it, but it is available in the Fedora repository. And then we have these two other ones here that I'll talk about a little later that lets you control VPNs with Network Manager. So the first thing you want to